Hey everyone, before we get into the video, I just wanted to give you a friendly reminder that my Draft Buff weekly playoff royale contest is still on. The week 1 league has officially expired, so you will need to join the new link for week 2, which can be found in the description and in my pinned comment. Friendly reminder that you could win a free jersey out of this, and it's completely free to participate. If last week wasn't your week, then get back in there and try again. Lineups are going to lock on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so what are you waiting for? Join through the link in the description and in the pinned comment and make a new team before it's too late. And now on to today's video. After 1 week of playoff action, only half of the 20 teams are still in the race. Week 2 is where it all goes down. The 4 teams who will be punching their tickets to South Korea is about to be decided. While some outcomes feel obvious, there's others that are very much up in the air. This is a very difficult week to predict. Last week showed us that anything is possible, and we've got some interesting matchups to look forward to. No need for a lengthy introduction here. Let's get down to business. Week 2 of the playoffs begins when the Atlanta Reign take on the Florida Mayhem. You know, I'm beginning to think the Mayhem dodged a bullet when they got taken out by the Valiant in the quarterfinals. Their path to a potential losers bracket run is all that much easier now. The Reign are the ideal matchup for them. This is a team they know very well and one they have a lot of confidence playing against. Since the early stages of the year, like around the May Melee I would say, Florida have constantly shown they are the stronger team. Now they have the chance to get into Atlanta's head when it matters the most. With everything on the line, they already have the mental advantage heading into the game. But this may not be a walk in the park. In recent weeks, the Atlanta Reign have shown signs of life we haven't seen all season. They are finally starting to play well against the good teams. The Reign also have a different philosophy than most with the current meta. Instead of going for dive or double off tank, they have actually preferred the brawl-oriented comps. Florida have only been dealing with the standard so far, so this is a look they don't really have a lot of experience with. But the Mayhem do have a lot of film to study, so they could in theory draw up a solid game plan to counter it. While they tend to lose their way when these plans get foiled, they're pretty good with executing said plans when they don't get completely disrupted. I have a lot of confidence in the Mayhem to counter Atlanta's playstyle, but it's not up to them on whether or not that will work for the entire series in my opinion. This game entirely comes down to the Reign. If they can show me the adaptability they have been lacking pretty much all year, and then can force this game to somehow be close, then the outcome is pretty much up in the air. They have the talent to keep up with Florida. We all know this. It's more about how they use their brains and what their coaches decide to do. Here's how I see it. If the Reign are able to force a map 5, they are going to win this game. They will be in control of their own destiny. But I really don't think they're going to get that far, unfortunately. I don't really trust in the Reign to find the answer. Florida's going to outcoach them in a 3-1 victory. The Mayhem's play felt extremely polished in their game against the Gladiators, and I think that's going to carry over to this week. Behind the heroics of their DPS, they shall prevail and keep their season alive for the time being. To decide who will be joining Florida in the next round of the losers bracket, the red-hot Washington Justice play the Valiant. Man, oh man, do I feel bad for the Valiant. Beating Florida ended up doing more harm than good. They get crushed by Philly and now have to deal with the other hottest team in the NA region. I love Packington and what he's done this year, but him and his team have their work cut out for them. The Justice are scary good. This is literally the most ideal meta for them. Roar's on the bench, they get the double pocket decay, and the rest of the roster is genuinely on their comfort picks. In particular, I wanted to give some credit where it's due to both Stitch and Tuba, who are both arguably playing the best Overwatch of their careers currently. Everything is clicking at the right time for the Justice. They could seriously turn a Cinderella story into a reality. They are beating up teams left and right, and they nearly sent the shock to the losers bracket early. These guys are for real, and their confidence is continuously rising. Let's call it how it is. They have looked more polished than the Valiant. The Valiant have had their moments, but the Justice have looked more competitive. I think a certain amount of star power and coordination is needed to counter that Justice comp, and I don't think the Valiant have enough of it. KSP and Shaxx aren't really on their comfort picks in this meta, and without them consistently carrying, the Valiant are going to be in a tough spot. I suppose they could try and change some stuff up, but it looks to me like the Valiant are going to keep on running the same things. The Justice nearly defeated the Shock. The Valiant would never be able to push the Shock that much. It breaks my heart to say it, but I see the Justice advancing to the next round in a 3-1 victory. The Valiant are going to fight like champs until the very end, but Washington's comfort will allow them to prevail. Alright, day 1 is finished. Let's talk about some APAC action, shall we? Starting in the losers bracket, we have the battle of questionable coaching. alexyOWL versus Guangzhou Charge. Last week proved to be interesting for both parties. You have the Charge, who had some sloppy execution throughout their loss, and the NYXL, who gave the Dragons a decent fight, but also nearly lost to the Chengdu Hunters. If we're simply going off the results, the NYXL should be the clear favorites. Their dive-oriented comps with things like Winston, Wrecking Ball, and Tracer found a lot of success. Sabiobi in particular, their team leader and team captain, has been very clutch for them. Guangzhou, on the other hand, don't really seem so sure of themselves currently. I find it rather questionable that they're choosing not to play Eileen on the Sombra. Given some of the struggles I saw with DPS execution over the weekend, I would say they could really use his help. Their composition choices were rather questionable in general though. I know Seoul have been finding success with it, but Sigma Roadhog really does not seem like their style. Ryu on the Sigma is not the right call, and I don't think they stand a chance if they make that decision again. But even with the poor play of Guangzhou in mind, I can still see this being a contest, and here's why. Despite Guangzhou having a rough week where they made some questionable decisions, they still did give the Dynasty a decent fight. I don't care what the scoreline says. Every single map in that series was pretty back and forth, so that gives me some hope. If they can clean some things up a little, then I guarantee you they're going to take some maps this time. But can they win? Can they keep their aspirations of winning a title alive? Well, I would say no. They'll likely be better this time, but better doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. It'll be close, but I have the NYXL advancing to the losers finals in a 5-map series. The NYXL showed me more that I like last week. They didn't really try anything crazy, they were sticking to what they know. That's what you gotta do when the stakes are this high. The NYXL understand this, and the Charge simply don't. I am fully expecting their DPS as well as Mono to put in more work. It's been a good year for them, but the Charge are starting to slip. The NYXL can smell blood in the water. It's time to prove who is better in this rivalry once and for all. Over on the winner side of things, the resurgent Seoul Dynasty are going to try their luck against the Shanghai Dragons. This is the game I've been looking forward to the most. And it's simply because I am interested in seeing a clash of two completely different meta philosophies. You have Seoul, who have perfected their double off-tank craft versus a top-tier dive team. Which composition's going to win out? Generally speaking, Seoul's composition has been dominating those who have played dive, but at the same time, it's important to remember that this is going to be their first real challenge. While I won't discredit them for their 2 convincing victories, the Charge and the Spark did not have a proper grasp on this meta, and it shows with the sloppy execution. The Dragons aren't going to be like that most likely. Their coaching is stronger, their players have a better fundamental understanding of the game, and their coordination is unparalleled. This won't be another joyride. I would be extremely surprised if it was a blowout in favor of Seoul. But if there's one team who is in a position to make an upset happen against the Dragons, I feel it's the Seoul Dynasty right now. Gesture and Marvel are looking pretty scary on double off tank despite being 2 main tank players. Not only that, but an emerging star has risen on that support line. Creative's Ana play last week was extremely inspiring. If this young rookie can keep up with someone like Izayaki, then the Dynasty seriously might be able to win. They seem to have a genuine understanding of how to counter dive. I wouldn't be surprised if I wake up in the morning to see the Dynasty somehow advancing to the Final Four. But this seems too good to be true. I'm sorry, Seoul fans, but that would be way too easy. You know how much the Overwatch gods love to curse and tease this franchise. Seoul are playing at the top of their game, but they haven't really played a team at this level in the playoffs yet. Unlike the previous Seoul opponents, the Dragons do know what they're doing, and they're known for making strong mid-game adaptations. The Dynasty will push them hard, but I think the Dragons will prevail 3-2. Their ability to adapt, as well as their elite DPS and tank play, will be the difference maker that puts them over the top. They're comfortable in their own skin, and they have plenty of film to study. This game is theirs to lose. Shifting back over to the NA bracket, we get the winners finals of a lifetime between the Fusion and the Shock. Let's call it how it is. Nobody is surprised to see these two make it this far. It was to be expected. This is the matchup we've been heavily anticipating. But even with all that hype and the insane rosters on paper, the Fusion have proven to be the superior team in this meta in my opinion. They are more confident with the style of play they're using, and the results speak for themselves. They've been making it look easy, and it all comes with Carpe primarily being on the bench. Even with their team leader not being the best for this type of meta, they press onwards without fear. The Fusion DPS have stepped up big time in Carpe's absence. This especially goes for Hisu, who continues to look like a top tier Sombra player. Through him and their amazing dive tanks, Philly have taken this region by storm. They have proven to be more fundamentally sound than everybody else. And yes, this includes the Shock. San Francisco Sombra play isn't quite up to par in my opinion. Anta showcased great potential on the hero, but it's not as clean as Hisu. He's playing the character at a different level, and I think that's going to be the ultimate difference maker. If Hisu can make the big brain plays he did against the Valiant and the Gladiators, then the Fusion are going to be in control. They will be the ones dictating the tempo. If the Shock want to avoid this, then it's going to be on Ants to continue building up quick EMPs while also getting maximum value out of them. And to be honest, I don't think he has shown me enough consistency to guarantee he'll come through. That's why I am predicting the Fusion to advance to the Final Four by a score of 3-1. Listen, the Shock are amazing, but the Fusion are simply at a different level. The Shock look pretty beatable right now, and I think the fans know this. They already had a scare against Washington. It's not like last year. They aren't untouchable. They're about to learn that the hard way, as the Fusion want this more in my opinion. That means the Shock will be moving down to the losers finals, where they will be awaiting either the Washington Justice or the Florida Mayhem. I'm not gonna lie. This potential pairing has been a nightmare for me to predict. The Justice are clearly playing at an elite level, but I have a good feeling about Florida this week. They look so much better with BQB on the Reaper instead of the Sombra. The Valiant are probably the only team besides the Fusion and the Shock that the Mayhem are afraid of. Not having to face them in this round is going to be a confidence booster. I don't see this being as easy as the Paris game for the Justice. The Mayhem actually know what they're doing. What it comes down to, in my opinion, is that compositional difference again. Double off tank versus dive. What's going to prevail? Florida already gave us a little preview showing that they can handle this comp in their win over the Gladiators. They were able to squeeze out a draw on Volskaya and win convincingly on Dorado when the Glads utilized it. It's a small sample size, yes, but it proves they can do it. I'm going to put my faith in the Mayhem to pull this off, believe it or not. I have Florida winning this in a 5-map game. That's right, I'm going to be that fool and that villain who says the Justice Miracle Run will not make it to the losers finals, or to Korea for that matter. There has to be some sort of surprise that happens this week, and this seems like a good time to make that happen. This is where Florida overcomes their demons of losing close games and they show us true greatness. Unlike some of the other teams who have been consumed by the Justice recently, I believe the Mayhem will come in with a good game plan. They have everything they need to counter their foes. All they really need to do is keep a level head. If they have their explosive DPS and solid coordination like usual, then this is going to be an upset that could definitely become a reality. And that leads us to Sunday. This is it. The final day, the losers bracket finals for both regions that will decide the other two teams joining the Final Four in South Korea. Starting with APAC, we've got the battle of the cursed franchises, the NYXL versus the Seoul Dynasty, two teams who are constantly trying to outdo each other to disappoint their respective fan bases. And yet again, I find myself feeling torn in this prediction video. Trusting in either of these franchises when the stakes are this high is incredibly risky, but both teams have been playing pretty well in the APAC playoffs so far, so I'm expecting a good game at the very least. But who is going to win? On one hand, we haven't seen the NYXL really play that much against the double off-tank composition, so we have no clue if they're ready for it. But at the same time, Seoul have yet to run into somebody who likes to utilize a lot of Wrecking Ball, so there's question marks surrounding them as well. There's a lot of uncertainty between these two. I'm convinced that it's a total coin toss. These two are as inconsistent as it can possibly get on a week-to-week basis, so I'm convinced that anything is possible. Both teams are known for being disappointments, so it almost feels like a battle of who's going to choke less. In theory, the Dynasty have a slight advantage though. Mono has been really good, but the combined force of Gesture's Nasty Hog plus Marvel Sigma should be stronger than the combined efforts of Mono and Happa. I'm also not entirely sold on Hoxel Sombra just yet. It's been rather inconsistent in my opinion, but even with these advantages, the outcome is still up in the air. If Jonah can act like a true veteran and outplay his rookie counterpart, then the New York support line is going to be better on paper. It's also not so easy to account for Sabiobi. Captain Clutch has been making some massive plays in the playoffs so far. He might be the difference maker if he has another good outing, but at the same time, he's going up against Prophet, who is a clutch playoff performer in his own right. That one positional matchup may be what decides this game if I'm going to be completely honest. Given some player history though, I think I'm going to pick the Dynasty to advance to the Final Four in a 3-2 victory. Guys like Prophet, Gesture, and Toby have already proven themselves in the clutch before. These guys have won major championships at some point in their careers. The only one to pull this off on the side of New York, I believe, is Hoxel, and as we've already established, he's on a role he's not extremely comfortable with currently. But even with all of this in mind, I can say, with 100% certainty, this prediction of mine has zero confidence behind it whatsoever. I have never, ever felt so conflicted over one prediction. There's too many variables that you simply cannot account for. This especially goes for when you have two cursed franchises like this going up against one another. So with that said, I'm just going to say Seoul Dynasty wins, and now we're going to move on. Let's talk San Fran versus Florida. Even with a big upset win under their belts, something tells me the Mayhem are going to crumble under the pressure of the Shock. This is the ultimate winner-go-home situation, and they have the pleasure of playing a San Francisco team who are in desperate need to keep their dream of back-to-back titles alive. I would be terrified if I was the Mayhem. I don't care if the Shock have looked beatable in the playoffs. We all know how good they can be at bouncing back from their failures. When you beat the Shock, they almost always come back stronger. That has been the case for nearly 2 years now. Losing to the Fusion is going to be a serious wake-up call, and I don't think it matters who the Shock meet in this round either. Whether it's the Justice, the Mayhem, the Valiant, it doesn't really matter. The result's not going to change. As former champions who have something to prove, they are going to want this more. The Shock always find a way to do it. Don't ask me how it happens, because I have no idea. It could be a certain individual stepping up, or maybe the whole team making strides as a unit like we've seen time and time again. All I know is the Shock are advancing to Korea one way or another. They will defeat the Mayhem 3-1. Nothing against Florida. They honestly did have a great season, and getting this far is something to be very proud of, but the lights are going to prove to be too bright. Not only is their team not as good as the Shock, but they don't really have the mental fortitude to keep up with them in a long series. The Shock have this way of playing where they keep you moving fast. They love to push the tempo, and it can take a lot out of you. Only the Phillies and the Shanghais of the world can really maintain that pace without breaking. The Shock's greater composure takes them to Korea. And there you go. Those are my predictions for week 2 of the playoffs. This week feels very unpredictable, so I'm pretty much expecting to get most of this stuff wrong, but regardless, I am very excited to see how everything goes. And now I turn things over to you guys. What are your predictions for this week? Let me know down in the comments section. If you guys enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot to me if you could like and subscribe. You can also become a channel member by hitting that join button, and feel free to follow my socials through the links in the description, and remember to join the Draft Buff League for week 2 for a chance to win a free jersey. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.